Am doing this broadcast live. I'm actually doing this one live. I've been doing some that have not been live in real time because people like to get together and chat and watch the videos. But this one is live, so people here, I will be interacting with people. And it's sort of loosely based around the idea, or specifically based around the idea of the main problem in life. And astrology solves that problem or answers that problem. Solving the problem is actually your work. That's why you're here. You've come here to solve the problem. And the way to solve the problem is to put into practice the things that you have figured out, or that you sort of think you know. So I'm going to talk about what is the main problem. There's really one big problem in life, and we think we have the answer to it, or some of us don't think we have the answer, but some do, and then we just kind of wander around saying, well, here's what's really going on. Why am I still suffering? Here's what's really going on. Why am I ignorant? Here's what's really going on. Why does nothing change? Because I know what's happening. I really do. And if the world would just conform, it would be fine. But then the world is wrong. Everything's wrong. Everything's wrong. Everything's wrong. It should be the way I think. And if it was just the way I think, everything would be fine. Think about it. I mean, think about this. Think about what happens. Think about that. So I propose the question, and people can answer first. What do you think? What do you think is the main problem in life? There's really only one problem. There's one problem that everybody has. Everybody has the same problem. And what do you think that is? What do you think the main problem is? Go ahead and type it in the box if you're here and you want to take a shot at it. What do you think the main problem is? And if there's even a solution to the problem. Or is it really even a problem? Because this is the thing that if this doesn't shift, if this doesn't change, if this doesn't hit you like a lightning bolt, then it doesn't matter what you do or what you say or what you think. Nothing's going to change. Nothing will change. It'll just be the same version. It'll just be a different version of the same thing. So there's a couple of questions. So Lisa La Rosa says ourselves. Okay, well, what about ourselves? Again, it's sure, but what about it? Self-projection. Again, self-projection. Again, if you want to, you have to say something more if it's going to be more, because self-projection, again, it's so innocuous. It could mean anything. Imbalance. Again, what is in being imbalanced? I don't know. Imbalance of what? Of what and what? Andy Bond, we want to find peace. Okay. Again, none of these things are wrong, but they're symptoms. These are mainly symptoms. Ourselves. Okay. Self-projection. Why are we projecting, and what is self-projection? What's the core issue? So all of these are different versions, and you should look at your answers to see this is how you experience the one problem. We all have the same problem. And these are all what it seems like things that are underneath it all. Again, not being present. Okay, that's a mistake that we're making. we're making that mistake because we have the same problem. Again, now someone says, energy. Again, it's so unspecific. I have no idea what you mean by energy. So again, there's a problem, and it could be summed up in like a very simple statement. It's right at the heart of yoga, by the way, and Ayurveda, yoga, the Vedic sciences get at it with one simple sentence. And it might seem obvious. It's not obvious at all, though, because look at how people are sort of jumping around it. Poor communication. Again, this is what brings suffering, but it's not a problem. It's a symptom. Expectations, desires. People are selfish. Union. Again, none of these are wrong. These are all symptoms of why we suffer. So a lot of these answers are why you're suffering and why we suffer and why we suffer. And by the way, Donna says people are selfish. It would be better to hear it as I'm selfish or you're selfish. Instead of saying people are selfish, Donna, you should say I am selfish. That would be more accurate. When people say projection, yes, that's a problem because what you're doing, that's a projection. You're saying people are selfish, that's the problem. You're selfish, that's the first part. Andy Bond says the problem is suffering. So there are a couple answers that are correct. Very simple. Candace just said it. We are spiritual beings in a physical body. Yes, we are spiritual beings. And Sarah says we don't know who and what we are. That is the problem. Yes, that's the problem. Because we don't know who and what we are, who and what we really are, all of this other stuff comes. We're not present. We have expectations and desires. We don't have union. Again, union with what? This is why I was trying to go deeper than what was also being said. Because we don't know who and what we really are, we have projection. We do this, we do that, we do this, we do that. We are ignorant. We don't know who we are, what we really are. So consequently, we also don't know why we're here, what this even is. We don't have any understanding of any of this. None of it. We don't know any of it. In a limited sense. Now, Andy says there really is no problem. Again, this is the bypassing 101. Sorry, I'm going to be really direct here. You're bypassing 101. First, you said the problem is suffering. Then you said there really is no problem. This is spiritual bypassing. There is a problem. You don't know the nature of the self. You don't know who you really are. If there's no problem, then why did you say there was suffering? Okay, again, then we're going to get into the explanations. We forgot our true connection. We get into all of these explanations. Okay, so all of that's a given. Again, I'm just being real here. Now everybody's going to come forth with their explanations. We are all energy, heartbeat is electricity, how you vibe. So now we're going to get into all of what our mind tells us to try to explain the basic connection. Now we're going to get into explaining the connection of why we're ignorant. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying me too. Okay, all of us, we are ignorant. Now watch everybody start saying a bunch of things. The problem is pain. So I'm not going to get into each one, but so this is, again, just our mind and our ego, which doesn't know who it is, by the way. Let's be clear. Let's be clear about what it means to say we don't know the nature of who we truly are. It means all of these things your mind and ego are telling you are coming from a source of ignorance. Because you don't know who you really are, you're now going to say something that is just coming from an ignorant person. It's an ignorant person saying it. Aren't I fun? I'm going to be a lot of fun tonight. So your ignorant mind is feeding you this answer now, and you believe it, and now you act on that. So it's literally like the blind leading the blind in your own mind. Not to mention, then we listen to what other people say and follow that. And again, our mind conjures up all kinds of ideas, our ego does. Underneath it all, it's because we don't know who we truly are. We don't know the nature of self. We don't know who we really are, of course, so that means we don't know why we're even here. We don't understand the nature of karma. We don't understand the nature of what produced this, quote, identity. It's this false identity. That's literally what it is. We think we're this limited being and we're this universal being, but what is that? What is that universal being? Again, we can believe that, People believe that when I say it, but they have no idea what it is. They don't understand what is that higher universal self. If you've not connected to it, then you have no idea that it's even there or what it really is. And even if you have connected to it occasionally, breakthroughs through meditation, you have a glimpse of it for a second or maybe even a little longer. Maybe you've been in deep samadhi for a long time when you're actually in the undifferentiated self. Then you know absolutely that there is a difference and you don't forget it and it stays with you all the time. However, most people will then go, oh yeah, that's what happens with me. Yeah, that's what happens. I've done that so many times and I never leave it. So yes, that's who I really am. Again, if that's the case, then many of the limited things that are said and all of the explanations and all the philosophies and all of this, it's our karma, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. You don't get confused on and you don't get confused about. So Angela says, we're the ocean, not the wave, like you taught us already. Yeah, but that's just an idea. It's just an idea. It's irrelevant. Forget I ever said it. It's irrelevant. If it's just a philosophy that now you think you know something, forget it because it's meaningless. Those philosophies are just to get you to practice. What I said at the beginning is really what's important. Again, we latch onto ideas as if they're real, as if they're ends in themselves. It's not an end. All of the ideas that conjure up, we're ocean, we're not, we're the ocean, not the wave, we're the this, we're not that. So now, see, that's it. That's that's what I am. That's why I'm here. No, it's not. It's just an idea. It's just an idea to maybe get you to do something, which is meditate and actually connect with the truth. Not think about it. Have a thought. Think that the thought is the truth. No, it's not the truth. The truth is the truth, which is who you truly are. And who you truly are is not a thought. It's not a philosophy. It's nothing I have ever said because I can't say the truth. I can't say this truth. This truth is an experience of who you truly are. It's not an idea because no idea is the truth. I mean the ultimate truth. I mean the truth of which is at the heart of everyone's fundamental mistake, which is you don't know who you truly are. Who you truly are. And because you are not any of those ideas, then the truth of who you truly are is not in any idea. This is the problem, and by the way, I'm not saying I'm this, but this is the problem that mystics and spirit and great yogi masters have, is they have to communicate through language, but they have to communicate through language in a kind of deconstructive way to say, so all these ideas will hopefully just compel you to understand that you don't know who you are, why you're here. Now meditate and find it. Now meditate and find the nature of who you truly are. Because that's the only thing that's important. So Andy says the problem is our brain. The solution is also our brain. Because it's your brain, because again, it's your brain that makes you, that when I see your brain, it's the intelligence, it's the self-awareness, the potential for that self-awareness to lead you to this truth. So the problem can be the brain if you don't understand the nature of the brain, or, quote, the nature of the self. If you remember the nature of the self, then the brain is a great tool. Because then you can remember, okay, so then the brain has helped you figure this out and realize, you know what? This part of my brain is the problem. And by the way, it's not the brain, it's the attachment. You hear me say it all the time. It's the attachment to the false self. What do you think the false self looks like? It looks like a bunch of ideas. And it doesn't look like a bunch of bad ideas. It looks like the best idea you've ever had in your life. Especially the idea that you totally believe, the idea that says, yes, this is who I am, this idea, that we're all energy, that it's the wave, that it's this, that's who I, what do you think the false self shows up looking like? It looks like that. It doesn't look like a bad idea. It looks like the most beautiful idea you've ever had. Yes, that's who I really am. No, it's not. That's the illusion. That's how we actually encounter the illusion more than anything else, because we hang on to that beautiful idea that we think. So you'll see in the astrology text, by the way, I am going to put this here. I just put a link here that, right now I'm doing quite a bit of work. I'm reopening my certification course again, inviting more students in. And one of the first things that I do in my course when I invite people into it is actually start with this, because this is where I think every astrology student, every person, not even just astrology student, but every human being should start with this question and answering this question and understanding this facet of life. This is what we're all here trying to figure out. And even in the link that I put there, one of the main things that I do before I start talking about astrology at all is reconnecting us with this sense of wonder that we had, where we understand, where we used to know that we didn't know. And we had this wonder about, who am I and why am I here and why is anything here, when we were a young child. And we kind of stopped looking for the answer because we don't think we can find it in a pure sense, but instead we have a lot of counterfeit answers. A lot of counterfeit answers about who we really are and why we're really here and why any of this is here. We think that all of our kind of, I'm this, I'm that. We think that's real. We think that's real. And it's not. That is the illusion. And it needs to be a catalyst towards greater exploration and experience of the self. The self is not an idea. It's an experience. You would experience yourself. You experience the truth. You experience the self. Just like love. Love is not an emotion. It's a flow. You have to watch all the ideas that you say, especially these flowery philosophies about spirituality and all of this. Again, and make sure that you're not bypassing. Donna, thank you for sharing. You said, I am love and I come from source, which is all-encompassing love. Okay, that's a beautiful idea. And I agree that in the highest sense, who you truly are is that. Unfortunately, you don't live from that point. No, you don't live as all-encompassing love and compassion. No one does. You live like the rest of us through the ego of, well, if you love me, I love you, and it's transactional, and it's not all-encompassing love because, even your earlier comment was that everybody is, I don't remember what it was, but it was something that was sort of blaming other people for not being a certain way. And you said people are selfish. That's what you said. That doesn't sound like all-encompassing love. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I appreciate you participating, but we all do this. Again, our highest self, that maybe we can, and we can rationally understand it because we touch those moments. We touch those moments of pure love, pure self. There are moments, if we're lucky, we go in and out of them, but we don't live from that perspective. Here's the analogy. This is the analogy that I use, and it's definitely a very good analogy. It's like this God consciousness in us is like a seed. It's literally a seed. It's the potential. And we have the potential, and we know we have the potential. It lives in us like a seed. But the seed is not the tree. The seed is not the tree. To turn the seed into the tree takes a lot of work. And what our ego does, one of the worst things the ego does, is it says, because I understand there's a seed, and because I understand that the seed could be a tree, I'm the tree. I'm the tree. I'm God. I'm pure love. I'm compassion. See, I am this thing. And the ego conflates and blows and distorts this potential into something as if it's manifest already. It's not manifest. That's why you're here to do the work. You're here to do the work to turn the tree, or to turn the seed into the tree. Because yes, you have the seed of God consciousness in you, and it's very dim. It's a little seed. Jesus actually used this term, or used this analogy too. He said it's like the mustard seed, because mustard seeds are very small. And he said God is like the mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds. But when you plant it and you nurture it, it becomes the biggest tree and becomes a huge shelter for all the birds of heaven. Something like that. Look up Jesus and mustard seed. But we go right to the fact, oh, I'm the tree. I'm the tree already because I believe that there's a seed. This is what we do. Because I believe that there's a seed of God consciousness in me, then I'm already the tree. I'm already the tree. And then we spout the philosophy of being the tree as if we're already that thing. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, as if we know. We don't know yet. And we don't know, and it doesn't happen until we've cultivated that seed. And that quality of doing the work, doing the spiritual sadhana is our life's work. Like I said at the beginning, we have an idea, but even the idea is just the start. Andy says, beliefs are the problem. It can be. But the problem is that we don't know what beliefs are for. Everything is spiritual. Just like the intellect, we could say, the mind is the problem. The mind can be a problem if we don't understand the nature of the mind. If we understand that the nature of the mind and intellect is to help us understand who I am and why I'm here. How does it work? Again, that's the nature of the intellect. And that's the part that astrology really helps with, because astrology actually answers the question of who you are and why you're here based on karma, how to navigate this individual, unique self, which has popped out due to karma, and this universal self that you're aspiring toward. This is actually the sort of crux between the limiting nature and how beliefs play into it. Because beliefs are also not necessarily just a problem, but also the path toward the, I guess you would say, solution. The reason that beliefs can be difficult is because if it's not aligned with authentic intelligence, then we're just believing things that we haven't practiced yet. And this is the real difficulty between, or the struggle between Mercury and Jupiter energy. Because Mercury is about how does it work? What do I do? How do I figure it out? What do I do? Literally, Mercury is very practical. What kind of practices do I do to awaken to the truth? But first we got to know the truth, and we got to define, and we got to look for that bigger answer. That's what Jupiter is doing. Jupiter is what gives us belief and the desire to believe. And we need to believe. And again, the reason that we believe is because we know there's something bigger within us. We already know it. And that also comes from the mind, because the mind or the intellect is bridging that animal nature, which the lower animals don't have that, with the God nature. Humans are in between the animal and the God kingdom. We're in between, literally, the I used to say between God and dog. Between God and dog is man. You invert God, you get dog. We're in between. So from our animal heritage to our God nature that's what our mind and intellect is trying to do. It's going between the two. So again, what astrology does is helps us understand this. Helps us understand not just this conceptually, this part of it conceptually, but also how the matrix works. Because then this matrix works along these very distinct energies. And, again, I actually talk about it in this video here. I just gave the link to it. And I talk about first this nature of how life filters down from the gross to the subtle, from the universal cosmic womb, the Akash, which is the same realm of, which is the quantum realm that we see in quantum physics now, where all moments are ripe with potential energy. And what pops out, what happens as a result, is due to our attention. This quantum field is everywhere. And our karma is what we fill the quantum space with, and then it produces a result that comes back. But what are those energies? So it's the energies of the planets and the evolutionary process of the sun, of the moon, of Mars, all the planets evolving within us and evolving these different levels of consciousness and choice. That's how it works. And at the beginning of the Vedic astrology texts, these things are stated and it's shown. And the order of beings and how Lord Vishnu and the cosmos has arranged itself, and our karma around the planets, around and how we read the astrology chart to see exactly which specific qualities of our unique self are being worked on in this lifetime. Understanding this shows us the truth of who we really are and why we're really here. First, we're not this separate thing. And again, you could just believe that, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. I'm not this thing. Okay. We don't believe it. We don't live from that point of view. Notice how much we trust all of these ideas that come out that explain it. It's just living. It's like literally this limited mind that thinks it's got it all figured out. Believe me, I don't think I got it all figured out. Trying to explain these large concepts through this limited mind is it takes a lot of steps to try to bring it out that way. And you got to start from the bottom and then make it more and more subtle. But there is no statement that could sum up. The only statement that could sum it all up is that we don't know who we really are. We don't know the truth of who we really are. I don't know the truth of who I really am. And I think I'm this limited being. So what we try to do is the ego then tries to survive, tries to win on some level. It's all our limited self, our limited identity and ego trying to assert itself over the deeper reality. And to use a metaphor that Angela used earlier, it's like the wave trying to assert itself against the ocean and say, no, I'm going to survive. I'm not going to recede into the great vast cosmos from which I came, which is my true source anyway. Now, again, this makes sense to our mind, and you can understand, yes, that makes sense. That's how it works. But again, that's just an idea. That idea can be very liberating because it will then compel you to do something and practice and do yoga and do mantra and connect with the ocean, not just believe that you're from the ocean. Again, this is how beliefs can be difficult. This is how beliefs can be limiting. If our beliefs prevent us from doing something, or our ideas prevent us from taking spiritual action, then they're limiting. But when they compel us to do them, in fact, the only time we're ever going to do something, the only reason why we're ever going to take spiritual practice is because we've had an idea and we figured something out and we know it's right. And the way we find those ideas is we find this higher structure to believe in. We believe it's true, especially because it makes sense to our mind. Again, we believe it because it's Jupiter. It makes sense to us because it's Mercury. Then we do it, which is Mars and Saturn. So you do the practices. You say the mantras, you do the yoga practices, the breathing exercises, because you know it's the right thing to do. You know that it's going to connect you with that deeper self, because what you've been doing, which hasn't been working, is you've been acting like the puny little wave that's about to disappear into the ocean. And you're like this wave resisting the inevitable, that one day You're going to die. It's all going to be over. Your whole family, everything that's so important to you right now is utterly meaningless in the overall scheme of things. Again, sit there and watch the ocean. And it's like one of these little waves that, and I'm not talking about a big wave, I'm talking about all the little microwaves, all the little waves that just come and recede and rise and fall. Think of all the people that have ever been born, that have ever lived. Is their life even one of those big waves, or is it one of those little waves? It's just a little wave that comes up and falls. And every one of those people thought when they were living that they were the most important thing, and in every moment, their whole life was the most important thing in existence. Just like yours is, just like mine is. I'm no different. That's the mistake. That's the only mistake we have, and we all have the same one. You think on the level of your animal brain that the whole universe is revolving around you on some level and what you want. Again, intellectually, you wouldn't say, well, I know that's not true. I'm not talking about intellectually. I'm talking about experientially. Something happens, it's as if it's only happening to you. I'm upset. So your whole world then becomes about your emotion. I'm happy. So the whole world is happy. I'm sad. The whole world is sad. You did this to me. Your entire identity, false identity, becomes changed and modified every moment based on whatever is going on around this entirely limited perspective of self-preservation, survival, and all of these limited animal drives. And as much as you have a belief about things that are more refined, you don't live that way. Your existence doesn't follow that. Now, again, I'm not saying conceptually, like in a larger sense. Like I could say, well, that's not true. I do astrology, or I do this, or I do that. That's all true, and that's in a larger context. I'm not saying that your life isn't aligned towards spiritual practice. I'm saying moment to moment. Think about it moment to moment. It's food and comfort and this and that. Again, and I'm not judging it either. I'm really not. It sounds like it, but I'm not. I'm saying we all do this. It's the way we're wired. You're wired as an animal to survive. That's what your karma is with this earth. Again, you want to understand what karma really is? Stop talking about it like it's your karma. It's not your karma. It's everyone's karma. Everyone is wired the same way. We put way too much importance on the subtleties and nuances of our little individual differences, the little individual differences of our personal karma. Because you had this childhood, you had that childhood, or I had this one. Those are the least important parts of karma. The most important parts are all the things we share, which are, we were all born on the earth. We all need to breathe air. We all want to survive. We're all human. We're even the karma we share with other animals, that we all have a nervous system and we want to be suckled and cuddled and loved. You share that with every mammal on this earth. How much more important is it in your life that you want food, shelter, and comfort? Is that more important in general than the fact that your father was mean to you? I'm saying on a daily survival level, what's more important when it comes to survival? Your food, your air, your water, your breath, which you share with every creature on this earth, even plants, or the fact, and I'm saying day to day, moment to moment, or the fact of how you were treated and all of these subtle things that you think, well, but this is me. What about me, me? All of these things that are just much less important day to day. Your life is lived more in accordance with these deep karmic drives that you share with everybody. That's the deeper karma. Now, I'm talking about it like this because, yes, the astrology chart also shows all the subtleties. But what's more important even about astrology and about life, this is how Vedic astrology is a Vedic science that is tapped into yoga and Ayurveda and all of these things that yoga and Ayurveda and all of those sciences actually really address. Again, food, daily habits, being in alignment with nature. These are things you share with everyone. And yes, that's karma. That's the deeper karma. So the first karma that you have is through the body with this earth. And you share that with every other living being. Then you have this sort of mammal karma, which is about, again, of course, food and shelter and all, but also love and nurturing. then the highest subtle refined parts of your karma have to do with spiritual growth, spiritual development, and that's the hierarchy of importance in you as well. Because if you were fighting for survival, you wouldn't be pondering whether or not you were connected to God consciousness. Go a couple days without eating and you stop thinking about God that quick because you start just trying to survive. So we're disconnected from this whole kind of thing that's going on. Astrology really reconnects us with the hierarchy of importance and the fact that all of these energies are evolving within us. And at first, and again, I've posted this link a couple times, and it's really, I outline it there. It's really the basis, the foundational and fundamental basis for what I think everyone should know, again, in life, but also if you're going to do astrology. It's remarkable to me that so many astrologers they're very far away from all of this, of these truths. And the truth is that when you start reading charts, you have to remember these things about, like, this is a person's motivation, especially like those gunas. And this is all shown in the classic texts. The gunas are the body, mind, spirit. Again, things come down from the balanced state, from that balanced universal God state. Through your karma, it filters down through 3 qualities of nature, tamas, rajas, and sattva, and then 5 elements, which is earth, water, fire, air, and space. Earth, water, fire, air, space. The 3 gunas and 5 elements arrange your body, mind, and spirit in accordance with your karma, with the actions that you've taken in past lives, and your need to then be here now to try to navigate all of this stuff. And the first thing that you're supposed to learn is that this isn't you. This physical separate being is not you. Not just a separate being. It's easy for you to say that about your body. Yes, I know I'm not this body. It's not so easy for you to say that about your mind. Because as soon as I start saying things about your mind, you're going to start to defend yourself. Notice it. You think you're your mind. All the thoughts you have, this is why when somebody challenges your thoughts and ideas, they're challenging you. You, wait, this is me. Wait a minute, who are you to say this about my thoughts? But again, I'm as guilty or more than anybody, so I'm not judging. But we think we're our mind. We think we're our thoughts. We're attached to the ideas. It's the body-mind complex, the body-mind ego structure. The ego is both. Don't think that the mind isn't part of the body and part of the earth. Mind is just a subtle part of body. Don't believe me? Eat some different food and see how your mind works. This is why pure mind, pure thought, pure food, it's all the same. And it's not just food through the mouth, it's through all the senses. So again, we're very attached to through the body-mind complex. We think that's who we truly are. And from that place of limitation and ignorance, we then concoct a lot of ideas about who we really are. And again, as if that's not part of the same thing. It's part of the same thing. They're all part of the same limited idea. The body mind that has the limitations then creates the idea, and we think that's who we really are. So it takes a lot of detachment in practice, right? And this is why we have the 5th element of space. The fifth element of space is not connected to the 4 elements of karma in the chart. Because in the chart we have, of course, if especially if you look at the astrology signs, fire, water, air, earth, fire, earth, air, water, right? I get them, back and forth. So those are the 4 mainly, the 4 main elements of our worldly karma. And I say worldly karma because there is no space in the astrology chart per se. But there is space in consciousness because space, the 5th element, is consciousness, which is observing and behind it all. Space is behind it all. Now, the planet Jupiter rules space, but this Akash, this 5th element, is the element that we activate and that we initiate through mantra and through using our mind and creating detachment. When you go into deep meditation, you enter the realm of space, and space is behind the body-mind structure. It's behind the thoughts. Again, we're attached to our thoughts. You think your thoughts are you. But what are the thoughts contained in? What is air contained in? Air is contained in space. This is not even poetry. Air moves through space. Space is the liberating quality of consciousness. And when you connect to space and you're in that realm of space and Akash, there's a liberation from your mind, mainly from the lower qualities of the mind. And if you don't do meditations that connect you with that space and that bring you in that space, and your meditations are just watching your mind or something, then you're not getting out of the matrix. You're not getting out of the complex. Sundari, my Amma sister said, Amma said recently here in Amrtapuri that all of our problems are because we think we are the body and mind. Well, I'm glad to know I'm on the right path. Exactly. It's exactly what I'm saying. We don't know the true nature of the self. As I said, we think we're the body mind. It's so deeply embedded. We don't even question it. We don't even know it's there. Again, this is why in yoga it's called avidya. Vidya means knowledge. Avidya means ignorance, opposite. The other way to look at it is we're so deeply embedded in it that we don't even know we're in it. Just like, for example, a fish doesn't know he's living in water. The fish doesn't know it's in water. That's just where it lives. It doesn't think it's swimming around in water. This is just its environment. The fish, imagine if you were a fish, especially like a fish that lives at the bottom of the ocean, they don't think they're in this thing called water. This is just life. They're just in it. And then let's say a hook goes in their mouth and suddenly they're yanked up out of it and they're like, what is this? What was I just inside of? We have no idea. This is how we live our life. This is how the body, mind, ego just envelops our whole consciousness. We don't even know we're in it. And then what happens is things come. Again, astrology explains all of this. But things come, especially death, things we can't control, things that destroy this embedded ignorance and this kind of sleepwalking, even though we're enveloped in this ignorance and this kind of certainty that, yes, I'm this body mind. Of course, I have these emotions. These emotions are me. These thoughts are me. I need to survive. This is all me, 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 me. Something happens that blows that up and destroys it. These moments come. They're often very related to the 8th house. And of course, that includes things like death, like people die or other things happen. And we get sucked out of it. It's like we're like the fish that's pulled out of the water. Like it comes and sort of hooks us and pulls us out. And we're like, what is this that I've been living in my whole life? I didn't even realize I was attached to the body mind. And by the way, there are people that go their whole life and they never get out of the body mind, even through death and all that other stuff. It's there to try to shock them into reality. It often doesn't. It can often just make people double and triple down on their beliefs. Oh, well, this is what's going to happen. My soul will go to heaven. My father who just died is in heaven now. Again, I'm not saying that's bad or wrong. But you'll see often how much a person understands these teachings by how much they put it into practice. Is someone authentically living the beauty and power of their beliefs? Or do they just believe it when they don't have any other answer, and then they go back and just live their life like a frightened animal trying to survive, being hypocritical and taking for themselves and not, you'll see this is why people are hypocrites, because then their beliefs become something that helps them answer the questions that we can't answer because the matrix is wrong, rather than being something that compels us to take action and to have a spiritual practice. This is why I'm saying the beliefs themselves aren't bad or wrong, but they're not the end in themselves. Just like these explanations, they're not an end in themselves. They should be a catalyst toward action. These ideas that you might have, well, it's this, or I'm a wave, or it's this or that. That's fine. It's not like it's wrong, and it can be helpful or hindering. It's hindering if it's the explanation that stops you from practicing. So why don't we practice? Well, because here's the problem. We can say all of this and we can believe all of this, and great beings like Amma will say this for her whole life. She'll say it endlessly. So why doesn't anybody ever do anything? Well, the reason is because of the same thing. When you start meditating and you start actually doing this stuff, what do you think gets destroyed? It starts to destroy your ego. It starts to destroy yourself. You destroy yourself, your false self. You might say, oh, that would be so great. Really? How willing are people to actually change anything about their life? Spiritual practice is hard. Spiritual practice means the death of everything you think you are. It's literally like your own conscious death. You're basically saying, okay, I'm ready to die now. I'm ready for everything that I thought was real to now get utterly decimated and destroyed. And I'm ready to look at all of my ignorance. Not, again, the easiest part is the ignorance about all these ideas we have. This is why I can say all this stuff and you're like, thank you. Amen. Yay, you're right. You're right. But that's not the hard part. That's the easy part, because we all know that we're frankly full of shit. Excuse my language, but once in a while it's appropriate. We all know that our intellect is just full of it. But we also have a lot of confusion around how much of a, frankly, kind of lunatic we are as far as the suffering we bring to other people, all the mistakes we've made, all the pain we've brought to people. We don't want to face it. We don't want to look at it. That's where it starts to hurt. Like, it's not just that my ideas are bad, but I'm a really, really nasty person. I'm like, everything that I hate about everybody, I do it. I do it all the time. I'm a cruel, nasty, jealous, violent person. I'm hateful. I don't really love anybody. I don't trust anybody. Basically, I'm a frightened, scared animal who just is trying to survive. And that's hard to look at. And so what usually happens is, what I've noticed, and again, I'm not preaching, I'm being real, this is me too, is people do just enough spiritual practice to not have stuff hurt so much. Can I do just enough spiritual practice so I can be happy? This is the ego. This is totally what the ego does. Because we don't want to change all the good stuff. I want to do just enough spirituality so that there's no more bad stuff. Can I do that? And then, oh, the ego loves that. Then we're really in our spiritual ego. Now we're really spiritual because we've learned how to now not feel so bad. And we start to really look at a lot of the problems that we have, and we don't do it as much. We become much more compassionate. We introduce a lot of presence into our life. It's true. This is what happens. So I commend everybody who does that and who does start to really own up to the difficulty and the problems that they bring, and who are really willing to get real about all the mistakes they've made and all the monstrous tendencies they have, because we all have it. And I think most people listening to this and many people in this world now have done a lot of this kind of work. So I commend you for doing these kinds of things. But then at a certain point, what happens is, again, the ego, it's very deep. You're not looking at it usually, you're in it. So at some point, I want to do enough spiritual practice just so I can be happy. I want all the bad stuff to go, and I want to keep all the good stuff. I like that part. I like that part of my ego. That's what we do. This is very much related to the 12th house of liberation. I use this as an example when I talk about the 12th house of liberation. Nobody really wants liberation, not liberation in the spiritual sense. Because liberation is all of it going, all of it, not just the bad stuff. We don't want liberation. We want liberation from the bad stuff and keep all the good stuff. Can I do that? Is that liberation still? Because liberation is liberation. Like final liberation is, I don't need anything. I don't need, at least as far as attributes of the self, it's like I'm none of these things. I don't have attachment to any outcome in the world. So even what happens with spiritual people and people that are getting closer, as Mahina says, to moksha, again, this is a very deceptive word. And this is why when I talk about moksha, the word often translates to liberation. It sounds so liberating. But why are two of the moksha houses, especially the 8th and 12th, two of the most difficult areas of life? It's liberation. It's so liberating. I feel liberated. All right. Then why does losing things not usually feel very liberating? This is why I say we got to be careful with these kinds of words. We have to be careful with these words. They're very deceptive. So again, liberation often sounds very liberating, but it's often loss. It's loss. 12th house is often loss. And loss doesn't usually feel liberating because it's not something that we chose. It's often things getting taken from us, often things that we want, like our relationship, we lose it. Our money, we lose it. The things we want, we lose. Nobody minds losing the things they don't want. We want, but we don't like losing the things we do want. Again, that's not liberation. We're liberated from things so that we can see that we're not any of those things. And again, the hardest things to detach from aren't the things that we don't want. The painful, the biggest obstacle to spiritual liberation is being willing, again, not to lose the things that we want, but to realize that we never had them to begin with. Again, we can say things like attachment is the problem, and we don't even know what that means. Attachment's the problem, and yet you have nothing but attachment to everything you want. I would try the simplest, the littlest thing that you have that you want that is utterly irrelevant. If I tried to take it from you, you would fight tooth and nail to hold on to it. So again, we could say things like, well, attachment's the problem. And you're attached to everything you want. Now, again, you're not attached to things you don't want, but then that's not attachment. What is attachment? It's attachment to the things you want, not the things you don't want. Of course, you can let go of a lot of things, but what about something that you want, or even just a part of it? You know, look at people that have more money than they could ever want. And I mean, even spiritual people. And you try to take $10 from them and they'll hang on to it. As soon as we start losing something, it feels like a loss. And the reason is because our soul is trying to be everything and it's trying to grow. I think this is the reason why the moksha doesn't feel so liberating, because on a soul level, we actually associate growth with sort of acquisition, with sort of growing and getting more, right? Because the soul is trying to grow, but part of the soul growing is letting go. And it's not growth in the sense that we would understand. It's more letting go and detachment and loss in that sense, or at least what feels like loss. You have to understand there is no loss, because nothing that, again, this is a yoga concept. Nothing that's real can ever be lost. Anything that you've lost, you never had. You just had attachment to it. Nothing you can lose, you ever possessed. It was just in your mind. And the only things that you ever have, the only things you can have are things you always had and can never leave. And these are all qualities of the self. The qualities of the self, you can never lose. You can never lose them. Of course, that doesn't mean your ego. It doesn't mean your mind. It doesn't mean your body. You're going to lose all of that. Talk about loss. Get ready to lose it all. But you can't, but all of those things were never yours. Your body doesn't belong to you. Neither does your mind. None of it does. It all belongs to the earth, to the world. Literally, you incarnated on this earth. Remember what I said earlier about karma. The karma of this earth is much deeper because that's what formed your body. And that includes and again, these aren't things that you did. You didn't do any of it. You. Did your ego bring yourself here? Did you bring yourself here? You. As you understand yourself. Did you make yourself incarnate? You can't really do anything that's important. You can't digest your food. Your body breathes on its own. You know, the wisest part of you is it comes from the earth and all of this wisdom of the earth and this platform for your karma so that you can come here and actually focus on these things I'm talking about. So I'm not saying even talking like the body is something that's lower or worse. No, in fact, the body is the most powerful, profound, wise part of you. Because it comes from the wisdom of the cosmos itself. Lord Vishnu has given you this platform so that you can incarnate and not even have to pay attention to things like breathing or digesting food or other things. Your body just takes care of it naturally. All you need to do here is acknowledge the truth, understand the nature of who you really are, and then do something about it. And then put those things into practice. So I am watching the comments here, and they're all quite interesting. Again, this is a lot of me just sort of talking about these issues because I am talking about these things a lot now as I'm doing. Post the link again. There's a few videos here as I am getting ready to start my certification course again and open up more slots for it. Probably do maybe 50 people. But I'm wanting to start with this because this is the thing where I think not just astrology, but life, people should know this. This is why we're here, whether somebody studies astrology or not or whatever, but astrology is the science that answers these questions. Again, the main problem we all have is we don't know the nature of the self. That is the main problem in life. That's the main problem. And at the beginning of Prashrahora Sastra and in the other astrology texts, when you look at them this way, and the whole body of Vedic knowledge, it answers these questions. First, especially at the beginning of the Vedic astrology text, it shows you exactly the order of beings, what the universe really is, what the solar system is. Lord Vishnu has taken the form of Lord Vishnu is the 9 planets. That's how Lord Vishnu looks. Okay, he's represented in these other pictures, with laying on the couch and with Lakshmi and all. But it says right in the text, and again, he's taken the form of the 9 planets to give the jivas, the beings that are still evolving, their karmas, so that you can come here and evolve and develop and know the nature of self. Very clear right there. And then talks about other different qualities of being and of life, and how at the end of your previous life, your soul energy, your jiva portion merged back into the grahas, and then at the time that you're supposed to incarnate, it comes forth again. It's pulled down by the planets, by the grahas, to live your life of karma. By the way, you didn't choose it. When I say you, I mean you that I'm talking to, your ego, that you live as you. People say, well, I chose this. How come I chose it, but then I didn't really want it? You didn't choose it, okay? If you don't remember choosing it, you didn't choose it. Again, this is the spiritual bypassing stuff. We get into this new age ideas of, well, my soul chose this, and we believe all this stuff, and we don't know how any of it works. It's just bypassing. If you don't remember choosing it, you didn't choose it. There are beings like Amma who chose it and remembered choosing it. And there are things that you choose that you remember choosing. That's the standard, not some belief that you chose it. This just gets people in a conundrum. Well, how come I chose it if I didn't really want it and all that? By the way, you didn't choose it. You were pulled here. That's why they're called grahas. They grab you and pull you and say, okay, now come here and evolve and face the consequences of your ignorance and evolve it. And here's this beautiful matrix through which to evolve. You get to enjoy life. You get to enjoy all these beautiful people. You get to have all these wonderful experiences. You get to see this beautiful nature. It's this beautiful experience. This place could be hell, but it's not. Again, we make it hell because our mind is hell, because our mind is tangled up in ignorance and darkness, and we project that hell into the world. Life is not hell. It's beautiful. You ever watch a sunrise? Ever watch a tree? Ever go to nature? How hard is it to find beauty in life? We live in a beautiful earth. We can enjoy beautiful food. Well, this beautiful place, right? It's not even unpleasant. It could be unpleasant. Now, because there are things that are unpleasant, we can't stick our hand in fire. We can't do anything. We got to learn. We got to learn the rules. But that's what karma is. It's all these natural laws. Karma is just another natural law. So you should understand it. There's tons of teachings, teachers, practices, literature, beautiful things that you already know, but you don't do. Why we don't do it is because it's painful. And who's it painful for? Is it painful to our soul? No, our soul loves it. It's painful to our ego because our ego is going to change and die and transform. And because we think we're this separate being, our ego hates spirituality. Admit it, your ego hates it. Your ego would rather do anything except spiritual practice. Anything. Mine too. So this whole world is here for our spiritual development. And yes, as Sundari says, Amma says nature is the visible form of God. We don't need to look any further than to see that. The sun, moon, and earth moved in their beautiful orbits to create this amazing planet where all the elements are in balance for us. Earth, water, fire, air, space, all in balance all the time. Another thing Amma says all the time is that beauty is in the harmony. If one element gets too prominent, if there's too much water, then it's not so beautiful anymore. Too much fire, not so beautiful anymore. Too much wind. But again, we have this beautiful one. What we find beautiful is to see everything in balance, in a harmonious dance. That includes our life as well. So again, astrology really, first of all, shows this beautiful rhythm of life and the specifics of how it works. Again, especially on the karmic levels, not just philosophical. Then when you get into studying, it shows you the specifics of how all of this works. Angela said something very important, and it's very good to see. She says the mantras, I don't understand the words, it feels fake. That's very important for you to acknowledge. I agree with you. You shouldn't do things that feel fake or do mantras just because you want to get something. This is why it's not, mantras aren't just fake sounds. They're prayers to different, different beings, different gods and deities. This is why even when people ask me to prescribe mantras to them, I don't do it usually. I ask them what their beloved deity is or guru, and if they don't have one, I say then, what's better is for you to find those sort of deity, find the deity that you resonate with, or you can just say the universal mantra, which is Om. And saying Om is just saying, that's the primordial mantra and probably the best one. Every mantra actually starts with Om. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Hrim Mahalakshmi Namaha. They all start with Om. And then they end with Namaha, which is I prostrate. But Om is the first. Om is the primordial mantra that you could say anytime. If that feels fake, maybe you haven't tried it. Because there's nothing fake about saying Om. It's a sound. And it's a sound that vibrates through your mind, body, and being. Again, whether you know it or not. Again, some of this requires introspection and solitude and a feeling. You go in nature and you say, and you just feel Om and you say Om, just in reverence to the universe, in reverence to, I've seen you, Angela, and your devotion to the sky and what you would call astrology and the reverence for the universe. That is Om. Nothing else but Om. Om is just the power, the divine love, that has created everything. So when you say Om, you're just giving reverence to that creative principle in life. And again, I don't think anyone going into nature saying that would have a hard time with it. I will tell you what you probably have a hard time with is you're not used to discipline. Because we can say it feels fake or I don't like it or this or that. I appreciate you being honest, but you're probably also not very disciplined. And I mean disciplined like looking at your mind, because what happens is when you start to do something like that, you're disciplining the mind. Instead of just letting the mind run wild and think all the thoughts you want to think, that's a very undisciplined mind. And saying a mantra disciplines the mind. And this is why the love of a deity is often there, because we want to give that reverence to the deity. Like when I say my mantra to my Guru Amma or to Shiva or any of the deities, I enjoy it because I'm connecting with that energy. I can feel the energy. I can feel the energy of the Guru. When I say it, I'm holding that beauty in my mind. Like if it's Amma, I've been around her, I can feel the power in the mantra. If it's Shiva, I don't know how many times I've said mantra to Shiva, and it's an absolute specific feeling. It's love. It's devotion. This is why there needs to be love. So again, what I've noticed with you, Angela, is your love for this kind of teaching and probably that reverence for the sky and that beautiful thing that captivates your heart. That is summed up in Om. Doesn't have to be to some deity with a blue face or anything. That's summed up in Om because it's the vibration of the universe. That's an example. And usually when people start looking into Indian deities, they resonate with one, they find one. But again, what happens is the mind doesn't like discipline. That's the other thing. So, and it's also why one of the greatest blessings anyone can have is to find a guru where you love the guru, because nothing is a substitute for love. Love takes you deeper than that ego. Love takes you deeper than that mind-body experience. Just like people who've had children, for example, that's naturally going to take them to something deeper because they love the child more than they love their ego. So they naturally learn a lot about themselves because rather than just following their ego, they actually are expanded by the love they have for the child. It could be the love of a guru. It could be the love of your work and your career and your students, or it could be love. Love is the great liberator. But I mean real love. I don't mean romantic love. That's a different thing. I don't mean relationships. That's a different muscle. That's a different thing. I don't want to get too off track, but I mean pure love, like a mother's love for a child, our love for a deity, our love for something bigger than ourselves. And no, we don't have it in a romantic relationship because the romantic relationship happens because there's equality and all that other stuff, which is a different conversation. So with any spiritual path or spiritual growth or any kind of growth, there needs to be love and devotion and bhakti. It's the path of bhakti. So you're welcome, Angela. Angela said, I like the creator Brahma. Thank you. Yeah. So one of the ones to say to Brahma, and you also have this kind of energy because I've observed you, is also to say the mantra to his daughter, who is Saraswati. So the Brahma energy is often not evoked in that sense, but his goddess daughter, Saraswati, who is the goddess of creativity. Again, what you want to do with these kinds of things is you go and you find that image. You can even look at that image. I just typed Saraswati in the text. You can just go look at the image, ponder the image. Then you can read the stories of Saraswati. She's the one who wrote the Vedas. She sits on a swan. It's a beautiful universal image. And you see how that resonates with you. And you can listen to the mantras first. Again, even just listening to mantras. You can find YouTube playlists of Saraswati mantras and just listen to it. It's very purifying just to hear it. And before you know it, this energy, it connects with something in you where you feel that the spirit of that. Very simple Saraswati mantra, Om Aim Saraswatye Namaha. It's a lovely energy. It's very much related to Mercury and Venus, very creative energy. So people that have a lot of Mercury, Venus energy, like their ascendant, especially, Taurus, Gemini, Libra, Virgo energy often really resonates a lot with Saraswati energy. So, all of the deities wind up linking up with someone's mind, but I don't push it on people because that's not their thing. But there has to be devotion there, because then you'll do it because you love it, like anything else. So this is what I wanted to talk about today, about the main problem we have in life and how astrology is really the one that can really help solve this. And when I say solve it, it solves it this way, because astrology is the one that gives us the answer. Because our mind is looking for an answer. The part of us that wants to know how it works and why we're here. Again, we can believe it, yes. Many of us believe in the bigger picture. It's very easy to just believe that it's here for a reason, and it's very easy to believe. But that belief can become bypassing, it become disconnected very easily. That's the Jupiter part. The Mercury part is, but how does it work? I want to know the answer. This is why we keep looking. It's why you keep looking on YouTube. It's why you keep looking for the answer. But how does it work? How does it work? Our intellect wants to know that. That's the buddhi. Yes, I already believe, but how does it work? And again, this is how even all that belief can drive you crazy if you don't get a good answer to how it works, because those two things are trying to link up, and they're supportive of each other, or they detract. A person can have a belief, they'll look for a teacher or a guru, and they believe in the guru, but then they start asking the guru questions. If the guru can't answer, they'll find another one, because this is Mercury and Jupiter trying to connect. Yes, you already believe, but you don't know how it works. You don't know who you are, why you're here, how it works. All that's Mercury stuff. Mercury's a part of you that's trying to figure it out. And astrology is a science that brings those two things together. It connects all the details and precision and actual stuff of Mercury with the bigger picture, because Mercury can just be gathering all kinds of information about anything. But when it connects with Jupiter stuff, it's about these higher teachings. So this is why I teach astrology. This is why my practice shifted years ago from just doing readings. I do a lot of readings, but, and I like doing readings. I like helping people, but I mainly like teaching, because I realized, also because it's right in the astrology books, that people are supposed to know it. They're supposed to learn it and understand how it works. And no, just coming to YouTube, finding a whole bunch of stuff isn't understanding how it works. I'm sorry, but it's not. In fact, in many ways, it's doing the opposite. It's creating this illusion that you understand. And then I hear it's better to not understand anything than to think you understand, and it's wrong. This is why I teach, because I want you to understand it, but I want you to understand it correctly as well. Not just think you understand and then say a whole bunch of stuff that's wrong and that make a bunch of judgments about your life and people and other things that aren't true, and then spread that and just so much. So this is why I teach it. And I go back to the pure sources and say, here's literally how it's built, how it starts, who you really are, how it really works. It's clear and it's known. I also have so many years in yoga experience with Sankhya philosophy and all that I already understood that structure anyway, and astrology just plugged into that part of it. But it's that part of the Vedic sciences. Astrology is the part that answers the questions of how it works. Yoga then is the practices we should do. Ayurveda, I should say yoga are the spiritual practices we should do, like the yoga, the asanas, the breathing, the mantras. That's all yoga. That's mostly yoga. Ayurveda are the day-to-day habits, being in harmony with nature, with our physical constitution, and all of those little things that we need to do, all those choices we need to make every day to balance out our daily mind, body, organism. But astrology is the one that teaches us how it all works, because we want to understand why we're doing all this stuff. And until we get a good answer, by the way, Vedic astrology is the best answer I've seen, and I've looked all my Gemini and all my years. I've looked everywhere. And it's the best, without a doubt. I think astrology in general, but especially Vedic astrology, because it's connected to the pure teachings. And it's very sensible. And once you learn it that way, you really don't doubt that this is how everything works. So I appreciate people coming. And I'm just going to leave it there. I've been talking for a while here. And share this with others if you think it's going to help them. And if you're interested in getting, trained, you can at least check out the free classes and whatnot, because that link that I put up there, the link that I put up there is a lot of free classes. You don't have to buy anything. It's, I do all kinds of stuff for free. Join my email list and stuff, and you'll get all kinds of good training. It's not all on YouTube, and it's not all, sent out randomly. So again, if you want to check that out, that's fine. And thank you everyone for your kind words. Ann says you're great. I appreciate that. Colette says, Sam, the number one and only Vedic. Thank you, Colette. That's really nice. And it's very much appreciated that you all are here. And Angela, thank you for your participation as always. And we'll be in touch.